Okay, welcome back to the channel. I know I look like an egg today because I got this hat on, but in today's video, probably going to be the final video we make on the topic of rod bearings with the N55 platform. So let's get straight into it. So if you want to know how to fix the rod bearing issue or prevent it on your N55, in my case it's an N235i, buy a B58. Okay, that's actually not the reason. Let me open up the bonnet so I can talk to you guys a little bit further and how you can prevent this so-called problematic issue which many people suffer from. Alright, here's the N55 in all its glory. I recently did give the engine bay a really good clean, so let me know if you guys think this is clean enough. And I also cleaned the bonnet itself, so the whole car right now is looking very tidy. So this is the N55. This is the edging which BMW kind of messed up the rod bearing issue with, and they've had this kind of rod bearing issue for a long time with these cars. And there's a big debate on forums whether people can track these cars, whether they can do donuts in them, or, you know, all these kind of things. Now, the reason I'm talking about this video, and which will probably be the last reason, is because a lot of people talk about it, and I'm going to try and give you guys information today of why it's so misunderstood and the easiest way to prevent issues with the rod bearings and that costly repair of replacing them. So, the N55, it's more prone on the E series cars, so the ones in, for example, the 335i, kind of the E90, etc. shape. Not so much in these F generations, such as this M235i. They don't suffer as much from it, and in the, obviously, F series M2, they kind of fix a lot of those issues with the sump, so that's not really something you need to worry about, and you can happily track that car with not many issues at all. Now, the main reason we're going to talk about it is because in May, I'm going to the Nürburgring, and I will be taking this car around track. I got big things for the car coming. We've got brake systems coming. We've got like braided hose lines, better brake fluid, the lot. There's going to be a lot of stuff done to the car before we go. So stay tuned. If you do want to see that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's completely free and it really helps me out. And if you do enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. Anyway, the issue with the oil situation on the ring. I won't be pushing this car round, you know, like pulling serious G's around the corners. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 500ml extra of oil from where the engine measures maximum. So if we take a look inside the car now, you'll be able to see, I can't do it now obviously because the car's cold, but there's a very handy thing that you can do with these BMWs, and that is the fact that you can actually measure the oil system with the electronic dipstick. I can't do it now because the oil temperature has to be up. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that's on maximum, and then when that's done, I'll put 500mm extra in. Now, before we get back outside the car, another thing I'd really suggest you guys get is one of these gauges. Now, this is just a cheap kind of eBay gauge. It cost me like £100. And why this is really important is oil temperature. So let's go back outside the car and I'll talk to you guys a bit more. So the reason I suggested about 500mm, there'll be a lot of people who will suggest adding more. There'll be people who suggest adding less. And the reason I suggested that is that's because a kind of common mediocre level that you can add. Now, the reason you don't want to fill it up too much is you don't want the crankshaft slapping the oil, and what this will do is it'll make it foamy, and obviously oil that has air in it isn't going to lubricate very well, and you don't want to have too little because then you're going to starve it. So I'm not an expert on the rod bearing issue, and I'm not going to be talking to you guys like I know everything. I'm just giving you guys some advice on how you can kind of not stress so much and go to sleep at night not worrying. So for the ring, all I will be doing is putting 500mm extra in, and I won't be pushing the car stupidly on track. I'm not running racing slicks. I'm doing the brake upgrades purely because last time I went I had a few brake issues, so that's just purely just for helping the drivability of the car. I'm not going round the set lap times. I'm going to really just try to go round, enjoy the track and have some fun with my mates. That's the main reason. But obviously I don't want to have the issues of rod knock or spinning a bearing or anything like that, so I am going to put a little bit of extra when I actually go on track. Not for driving there, purely just for the track. So now let's talk about warming your oil up. This is another really crucial thing which can really help prolong the life of your rod bearings. Now, when I start the car up, if I'm going to go for a drive, I don't let this car leave the driveway until the oil is up to at least 30 degrees Celsius, sometimes more. And the reason that is, oil becomes thinner when it's warmer, so it's better at moving through the engine. You've got all these pipes here, for example. You have two pipes here which go right down to your oil cooler, which is down here, and it also goes all through the engine. All different parts need to be lubricated, and obviously if you're trying to push thick oil around the engine, it's not going to get to the places as well as thin oil would. So that's why I let the oil warm up, And as soon as I leave the drive and I go for a drive, I don't instantly get to that road and absolutely floor it. I drive the car kind of medium throttle, nothing too crazy, until I'm up to at least 70 degrees oil temperature. And then when I'm approaching that 100 mark, that's when I really start to open the car up and start beating on it. What I don't want to do is scaremonger you guys with this rod bearing issue. There's a lot of forums, and trust me, I've read a lot, and I don't want you guys being scared about, you know, do I need to add a baffled sump? Do I get the M2 or S55 conversion with the oil pumps, etc.? You can do that, and it purely depends on your budget. But I would say, if you're on a budget and you can't afford the baffled sump, because that can't always fix issues, or you can't afford the S55 upgrades, I would suggest, if you're going to put it on track, put the oil a little bit extra. If you really want some driving advice, if you're going to go for a drive, don't bash the car on cold oil. That's the number one thing for pretty much any engine out there. Let the oil warm up and the car will thank you for it. I don't drive this car anywhere without the oil getting to at least somewhat operating temperature before. And that is why I use this tool, because when I start the car up, for example, if I start it up now, which the key's in my pocket so it should do, it's going to come up here. Starts first time as always. We'll let this thing boot up and you'll be able to see what it does when it's plugged in. So it's booting up now, and as you'll be able to see, there we go, oil temperature 12 degrees Celsius. We've got water, we've got air intake temps. This is what I've set mine up to be. So I got like speed, voltage, turbo PSI, intake and water temp, as well as oil temp. I let this idle. I just let it idle like this until this is up to mid to high 30s. And the reason I do that is, I'm not going to tell you guys any more about it. You know the reason, because oil gets thinner the warmer it gets. Now I love this car to bits, and I've done loads and loads of miles in this car. And I think one of the reasons it's given me no issues is because I let the oil warm up to some sort of operating temperature before I start driving the car. So, final thoughts. Don't buy a B58. If you like your N55 like me, then keep it and just maintain it well. If you're going to buy one of these, try to get one that's been really well maintained and has had frequent oil changes and has had an owner which you know has cared about the car. Not someone who has like started it up, driven it really hard, because then you're more likely to get those rod bearing issues. And it's a big bill. You know, you've got to drop the subframe on these, you've got to get sump off. It's not a cheap thing to do. Plus you've got to pay for parts. And if you don't have the knowledge to do that stuff yourself, then you're paying a garage and they're going to absolutely rinse you for it. What I'll do now, I'll put some sound clips of my M235i on the screen and some flybys so you guys can hear what it sounds like. If you want to make yours sound like mine does, then there's loads of videos on the channel, so be sure to check them out. They'll be on the channel somewhere. But apart from that, I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel to see more content. And apart from that, you'll catch me and this N55 is still alive in the next video. Thanks for watching.